Good evening, everybody. Welcome to back to 22 panels in the Milestone Book Club, where I would normally say the brothers Anderson, not related, are here, but right now only Ted's here because
I'm
Marcus
the
is
only
running late.
I'm the
But
only brother you're gonna get.
yeah, but since Joe Illidge decided to join us, since we're talking about his run on Shadow Cabinet, we didn't want to make him stick around waiting for Marcus. So Marcus will just show up in media res, and he's a smart guy. He'll figure out what we're talking about. Joe, how's it going?
Going well. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. I'm doing
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it's doing okay so
Nice.
far. 6 weeks left of
Nice.
school. That's where I'm at.
You got six. I
Wow.
only got four. We're down to
Ooh,
four. We
okay,
we get done right before Memorial Day.
nice.
Wow.
So,
Yeah,
so
we're
we're
both.
in that everybody's starting to make up their tests and frantically try to write the papers that they haven't written. And
And the kids are completely checked out. The kids have no reason they want to stay there. They're done.
no, I'm talking about the kids.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, for the days when school is actually broken down into semesters. Like I'm in the school
Yeah.
of hard knocks, which never ends.
Oh yeah, every day's a new
What?
lesson.
There's no summer break for the school I'm in.
No summer break for Joe's school.
That's good. That's good. I like
Nope.
that.
Oh,
Listen,
look at that. Marcus is here. The brothers
Oh hey,
Anderson, no
Mr.
relation, are
Anderson.
both in the house.
Yes, yes. And
Maybe.
nope. When you
Marcus hasn't
listen,
unmuted himself.
I know, I
he's
So,
know. We
you know,
we see
something
his
like that.
photo though. It's a nice photo.
Yeah.
But
lovely picture.
yeah. The
So,
hustle,
so
the
Jo-
hustle has no breaks.
Joe, what was it like to come back to Milestone?
It was
I mean, you
great.
never completely
I
left,
mean,
but
to exit in the 20th century and come back in the 21st century is of course wild. And I remember when I got myself set up in the system at DC, the woman who runs DC's talent and editorial administration um has said to me at the end of an email, "Welcome back to DC Comics." And I was like, wow, that's kind of, it feels good. So it was good to be back, at Milestone. And, I had been keeping myself aware of the books in the 21st century relaunch. And, Reggie and Dennis are friends of mine. And so, I had the awareness, but being plugged in as a writer, definitely coming back, that felt really good.
I mean, one of the obvious lines that we've always talked about with all the Monster Returns books is the way that the way that certain elements are being updated, or what they're changing, or what they've, what needs to be more updated than others. And it's fascinating. It's always really interesting for me to see what doesn't get updated, like what's sort of stayed exactly the same. I- Static feels very much the same in his sort of persona, like things like that. What elements need to be updated and what don't, and it's yeah, like you said, leaving in the 20th century, come back in the 21st. It's that kind of
Well,
stuff
it's
is gotta be
interesting you
fascinating.
say that because I consider Static profoundly different because the Static of the 20th century, he had a lot of jokes.
I was,
This
yeah, I
kid
was,
in the 21st century, that's not his bag. Like, he doesn't have a lot of jokes. Like, it's very serious for him. And so, you know, what was very interesting for me, and a number of readers told me this, and that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is good. I felt like part of what I had to do writing the characters is I had to actually create some kind of fusion of the 20th century version and the 20th century version because I knew that both categories of fans were reading it. And so the way I approach that is the way you approach any intellectual property with long legs, the way you approach Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman, which is some things are constants. Some things are constants across the different versions, not counting absolute, which is intentionally an aberration. And I
Yeah,
don't mean that as a negative. I mean that in terms of its absence of adherence to core mythology. But there are core rules to Rocket, to Static, to the Blood Syndicate, to Hardware. And so I really try to achieve what I would call a fusion characterization. And I feel like I succeeded in that. And of course, part of that is the art, right? Because without the art, what I'm doing is prose at best, right? And so having Darryl Banks and Adegun Ilhan as the artists, Darryl Banks is a veteran, and Adegun Ilhan was a graduate of the Milestone Initiative. I think that helped create the sense of the fusion of approach. And then what that did is that opened the door for reinterpretations, right? So Transit was a reinterpretation, Sanction was a reinterpretation, right? So because
Mhm.
I did a fusion approach with the heroes, I was able to take the antagonists and evolve them in a different way.
Hmm. Joe, sorry, I was dealing with an emergency, so I wasn't
No
I
worries,
missed the
man.
beginning of the conversation. But one question I had was, do 'cause I know famously the original run of Milestone, there was like a big, Milestone Bible.
Yes.
This time around, is there with the modern Milestone, is there a version of that, or did you, I guess, like, was there a version of that you had to build from when you were both merging and reinterpreting characters?
Right. If such a document exists, it was never given to me. Right.
Okay.
So my approach was really, well, I've read the books, right? And
Mm,
because the assignment to a degree was that Shadow Cabinet had to be the culmination of the entire Milestone relaunch, going back to Milestone Returns Zero, which debuted in digital form in 2020 as a part of the DC Fandom event because there were no live, conventions due to the early time of the pandemic.
right.
So Shadow Cabinet had to be a culmination of 4 years of
Yeah.
stories. So for me, the Bible was the books,
Right. Right.
right? It was all the miniseries, most of which I had read, and then the others I was like, okay. And I remember like Duo. Duo was one of them that I just had to marathon read it, and I was like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna
Right.
sit on my couch for like 2 hours, and I'm just gonna read Duo,
You
right? And
did
then
some
once I did
cool
that, I was
stuff
like,
with that
I know who
character.
they are, huh?
Yeah,
Right.
You did some really cool stuff with that character
Yeah.
or those characters.
I was gonna say one of the things I really liked about your run, because I didn't know what to expect, and I loved the original Shadow Cabinet run, and this was very different. But one of the things what I really liked that you did was, if you think about it, you mentioned just now, it was what, 2020 when Milestones Returns like launched, and so it's like we've had these cool series, but there's been a lot of like time in between, you know? And so as I'm reading this is almost like refreshing me on like, what was going on with say the new version of Blood Syndicate versus the old one. Because I'm always rereading Milestones randomly, but like we are for this podcast as well. So a lot of times I would be like concurrently reading like old Blood Syndicate and new Blood Syndicate. And,
Mm-hmm.
so but like what I love about what you did here is that um it's a real refresher, but you kind of like tied some threads together too, because we've seen the different like kind of core milestone characters overlap a bit in some of the events, but they actually haven't overlapped that much. I feel like I remember seeing like Rocket and Virgil overlap, and Blood Syndicate overlapped a little bit, but I
Mm-hmm.
like that we had kind of one storyline that was dealing with the different threads, because in a lot of ways I feel like in the newer runs we've seen them in their own like silos, you know what I mean? And so it was kind of cool to have them operating in
Well,
this one book.
we'd gotten a little bit of the crossover with Icon and Hardware, but it had
Right,
felt
right.
kind of sloppy and not like entirely in a bad way, but in a way that I think you really kind of righted. You
Yeah,
took the loose ends that were left and really kind of pulled it all together.
100%. And, thank you for both of you recognizing that. Yeah, because so, yes, the milestone characters, what the fans wanted to see at some point was the cohesive world
Right.
in which they were all included. And to your point about Icon versus Hardware, structurally, we could call that a 5-act story. And basically, the rest of the Milestone heroes didn't really all get together until like Act 4.
Right.
And that was it. Like Acts 1, 2, and 3 were Icon and Hardware. Act 4 was all the heroes. And Act 5 was Icon and Hardware again. And then you had some epilogues. And so I felt like, okay, this is going to be like the full world story that you can look at from a 10,000-foot view and you can see the through lines, right? And one of the things that's important in any world like that, and I feel like this is done to varying degrees of success or lack thereof, is causality, right? So this is something I cite whenever I'm talking to clients that I'm doing editing work for or consulting. The cause and effect, right? So years ago, the creators of South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, did a talk, I believe, at MIT, and they talked about but therefore, right? And they said, you know, a bad writing is this happens, then this happens, then that happens, and this happens, that happens. Good writing is this happens, but this happens, therefore that happens, but this happens, therefore that happens, right? It's causality that creates the pivots. There is no straight line. And so it was important to have that sense of causality in Shadow Cabinet so that you can see one person's actions were affecting two people, sending them on a path, and one of them was affecting two people, setting them on a path. So there had to be a sense of causality in the story. And I felt like as we got further in the story, the cascading causality increased. And then it all coalesced in the final issue. So I was very happy with that result.
It did. It was one of those things I remember being delighted when I realized exactly why Blood Syndicate was showing up again in that final issue. It's like, oh yeah, that's because the what was the exact nature of it? The I
Well,
had it
they
and I
got
lost it.
captured.
They got captured,
What
but then
right. What happened was Angela Alva, you find out in the third issue, right? That Angela Alva has been supervising the metamorphosis of her brother. Because her
yeah,
brother, Edwin Alva, disappeared off the map 6 months ago. No one knew where he was. And when Shadow Cabinet began, you had the Illuminati that he was the head of, the corporate, you know,
the
billionaire
system.
Illuminati called System. And
Yeah.
you had some other guy sitting in his chair, right? Because he was like, well, Edwin's not around, so I'm the boss. And then Angela shows up and she's
Puts a
like,
bone through that.
no, I'm an Alva. So that's my chair you're sitting in. And she kills the guy and she has that guy removed and she goes and sits in the bloody chair, right? So that was the beginning, kind of like, no, we're going to put an Alva back in charge, right? So that was the first thing that sets off a series of events. But in fact, what was happening was, you know, and this again goes to causality, the events of Icon and Hardware led to the world of Shadow Cabinet because 6 months had passed and everything changed because of the aftermath of Brainiac's invasion, right? And so the Milestone universe is a very naturalistic universe. So when I was thinking about Shadow Cabinet and I said, okay, what's the storyline that's going to be big enough to bring them together? And I was like, okay. Then you also have the second job, which is you're not just talking to the Milestone fans, you're talking to new readers. How do you create a landscape that invites the fans but invites new readers? Basically, you create a new status quo that redefines the relationships that the existing characters have in that world while creating an entry point for new readers. So in the aftermath of the invasion of Brainiac, things changed, right, for everybody. And one of the things was Edwin Alva disappeared. Why he disappeared was revealed in issue 3 because Brainiac's attempt to invade the world showed Edwin Alva, this billionaire, how frail and unimportant his idea of conquest was. Now, you got to understand the mentality of a narcissist. And some people are getting an express course in narcissism right now. And that's a whole other conversation we won't get into here. But one of the things about the mentality of a narcissist is there is no end. There is no point in the future where the narcissist is satisfied. The narcissist is a shark that eats and eats and eats and eats and eats and eats. And so for Edwin Alva, in the revelation of the power of Brainiac, power for him could no longer be, I'm a billionaire. Power had to then be, I'm a superhuman. Right? So he took the steps to use the technology and the super science of the Milestone Universe with quantum physics and nanotechnology to make himself into that superhuman. Now, as happens with a number of experiments in science, somewhere along the way, chaos messes things up. Something went sideways with the experiment, and Edwin Alva needed a quantum injection of power. So Angela said, oh, I'm going to get the Blood Syndicate captured, and they will provide the power source so this transformation of my brother can be completed. And so she hires Sanction to capture the Blood Syndicate, right? So that's what was revealed, right? Like where Alva was, Edwin Alva, why he was out of commission, what was his goal, and then to your point, Ted, how the Blood Syndicate mattered in this story. They weren't just pieces of furniture. They mattered in a very critical way.
Yeah. I'd like to talk just for a minute about antagonists and about Angela Alva in particular. So as far as because I read a lot of Milestone back in the day, but I don't remember her. So she's a totally new character, right?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
she is 100%.
I love that because back in the day, like Edwin Alva, I hated him, and in that villain you love to hate type way.
Yes.
But and obviously I feel like my loathing of him had a lot to do with the relatability of because Dwayne McDuffie's so brilliantly like created a villain from his dealings with glass ceilings, etc. And condescension from just white dudes in the workplace, and but there was that smugness and everything that really made me hate Alva. I loved the idea of Angela because yes, she's like truly villainous. I mean, first of all, that entrance was it was just a really badass entrance to literally
extremely good
chair like
Thank
that.
you.
And like she's complicated in a different way. Like like she's truly villainous in a real Alva way, but with there's the complications of her being a black woman, the tragic circumstances of her of her birth and abandonment and all of that, and how it embittered her. Like so I don't know, like that was really cool. I almost was like, yo, I'd be okay if Edwin Alva got killed in this storyline and she just was our new evil Alva, or our new Alva antagonist. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was a really interesting character. So could you just talk a little bit about how, I guess, like how she came to be in your mind?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you like her. When I write characters or edit characters, I become connected with them. So Angela Alva to me is Angie. I call her Angie, and I love Angie. Like I could write an Angela Alva series for monthly for 5 years easily. Right? I love that character. So the way she came about was when Reginald Hudlin and I were talking about this early. One of the things he said was, "I'd like there to be Black heritage in Alva's past."
Mm.
And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I'll figure out how to do that, right? Like that's what you want. I'll figure out how to do it. So then I had to build out the whole 100-year mythology of the Alva family. right? And identify where the biracial origins came from. And so what we find out is that Edwin Alva's grandfather, who was born in the 19th century, was an albino, who in the 20th century was passing for white, because a black man who could pass for white during that time, some would certainly take that opportunity. And he was an inventor, so he was kind of like in this circle of the elite. He had money because he was an inventor. He had patents, right? So he passed in this world. And then what happened is the genetic quality skipped the sons, but then pops up in the kids, right? So Edwin was the first child, and Angela was the second a year later. Now, in the 60s, not many white parents would be raising a black kid in the United States, right? So Angela's mom was like, she's got to go. So they gave her to the black maid. They're like, hey, we're going to pay you, go out of town, live someplace else far away from us, raise that kid, tell that kid you're her mama. Right? And then, you know, like you said, like she's an Alva. So as Edwin Alva turned out to be a narcissist, Angela Alva turned out to be a narcissist. I would call her, it's interesting, I would say she hadn't been fully realized. Like the Angela Alva of most of her life was like 8/10 of the way there.
Right.
But when she almost dies and her mother cannot give her a blood transfusion, and there in the hospital bed, half her body broken, truly vulnerable for the first time in her genius life, and her mother, with not a modicum of empathy, basically like tells her, well, here it is. Right? Like your whole life is a fucking lie. Right? And your name is the name of the billionaire family that appears on buildings throughout the globe. Right? Think about that. Like that's the most vulnerable time of your life where you almost died. You're there in the hospital bed, half broken. And your mother, and you're in your 60s, because Angie's in her early 60s. And your mother tells you, I'm not your mom. And in fact, you know, you're part of this heritage, right? And that's when she fully becomes what she could be. That's when she crosses the other 20%, right? And so Angela came to be because of the rule in writing, show, don't tell. So I thought, well, what's the best way to show that Alva has biracial heritage? To give him a black relative, right? And show that. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the opposite of the white man? Well, it's the black woman, right? And it's like, now we can explore a whole bunch of things, right? We can explore black women in our society, biracial identity in our society, the importance of names, right? You think about like in The Wire, like in that 5th season where Marlo Stanfield tells somebody, my name is my name, right? That's your grounding to the world. And she found out that her name, which was Jefferson for like 62 years, is not her name.
And that's layered in itself.
Like,
well, no, I said Jefferson, like that's layered in itself, right?
Well, 100%, right? It's the Jeffersons, right? And it's Thomas Jefferson. It's all of that stuff, right? Yeah. So I picked that name on purpose because, like you said, it has layers, right? It has historical layers, that pop culture layers, and but yeah. So that's the thing. So when I figured out the family, when I figured her out. And Marcus, you know this because you've written, like, it's that moment where it's like, bing, and you just go, man. Like, the character starts defining themselves and they just get away from you, right? And it's like Angie became alive. Once the idea of her came out, I was like, she just exploded And she was like,
Absolutely.
get me out of your head and onto the paper. And I was like, let's go, sis.
Yeah, and like for me, she just felt more dangerous than Edwin Alva in the sense that, like you said, like Edwin Alva is a narcissist. He's you know smarter than in some ways, but not dissimilar from some of the people tormenting our country right now. But
Right. Right.
there's something to Angela where just the nature of her origins and just the layers of identity and finding out, that her life was a lie, being reborn, basically in that hospital bed like you're talking about.
Hmm.
She just felt, I don't know how to describe it. She just felt dangerous in a way that Alva didn't necessarily. I almost
She
felt
doesn't have any.
like throughout the years, Alva's
Alva was
and
entitled. She
yeah,
has
She has
Hmm.
nothing to
something to
lose.
prove and
exactly.
nothing
She has
to
something to prove, but
lose.
Hmm.
nothing to lose. Like
Hmm.
that's the
Exactly.
thing I love about her. Where
Hmm.
Right,
she
Yeah.
has been at the bottom in a way that Edwin Alva never has been.
right,
Right.
That's
Right.
like,
Twofold or threefold, right?
right.
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's I
So
I love Angie so much. Like she's great as a character on her own, and also how that shifts Edwin Alva's narrative is a really interesting way. And I love, yeah, no, this is such a cool new addition to the Milestone. Like we've talked about, there's so many great things from the original Milestone universe. This is something that's new that feels really interesting and exciting as well. So, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, no, man, this is fantastic. Obviously, we love it. Like we're doing a
Yeah.
podcast about it.
yeah.
I want to pivot to another strong Black woman because I think um, some in Milestone Returns in general, but really in your run, Rocket, who was already a strong Black woman,
Yeah.
is so much stronger than she was, so much more gravitas than she ever
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
in the original. I mean, my original Milestone universe was like, here, let's have a strong Black woman, and like they didn't
Oh,
downplay her, but
yeah.
like it always felt, at least in the parts that I've read so far, and I'm told that she emerges more. So like,
Yes.
I am two compendiums in. So like, I'm
Okay.
only speaking to that point. It
Okay.
feels like, oh, let's try out this strong woman character, and we're not going to have her be just the sidekick, blah blah blah. But like here, she controls her destiny.
Yes.
She
Yes.
says, I mean, just like everything that she already was in the original Milestone universe feels like
Yes.
it's ratcheted to 11. Um, Talk to me about doing that, what it felt like, what the decision making was like, and like she really, as much as this story pulls the whole universe together,
Yeah.
Rocket anchors this story.
Yes. 100%. So it's interesting. So there's a number of things, right? One is that, so, listen, as an editor, my two most important and most impactful mentors were Dwayne McDuffie and Denny O'Neil. So when you're talking about story masters and character masters, no one beats those two. You can equal them, but you cannot beat them. Um, and so, what I'm always thinking about with stories is, and to me, this is like it's rule number one. Like, give me a character to give a shit about, right? That's the starting point. You give me a character that I care about, and I will go to the ends of the universe for that character. So Rocket had to be the entry point, right? Like the entry point for the fans of Milestone and the entry point for the new people. Now, why her? Because to your point, Tad, as realized as a character she never got out of the sidekick role, right? So circumstances forced her to, because she was alone, because there was a heroic fight that needed to be fought, and Icon was gone, and Hardware was gone, and the Blood Syndicate, they don't even know if they're heroes or not, and they're just on Paris Island, and Static is nowhere to be found. So it's just her. The fight has to be fought. So she's the one going out there doing it. Part of that speaks to her conviction and her ethics and the depth of her character. Part of that speaks to how young people of our times are inheriting a toilet full of manure in terms of the status of the world in which we live in. And they didn't ask to be here, but they're here. And here's the toilet of manure. But you know what? They're out there fighting some kind of fight, right?
Okay, I'm gonna
And
stop you for just a second because I want to emphasize that because there have been too many people who've finally been realizing how big the fight is, who've also been turning and trying to blame young people for being too dumb or blah blah blah, when young people have been out there fighting the fucking fight for a decade. So
yep,
thank you for recognizing that.
yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Listen, I mean, those are just the facts. I mean, young people,
I agree.
they're activists, they're more politically savvy. Um, Unfortunately, they have more anxiety, they're more pissed off. It's totally understandable.
Understandably, though.
When they were born into shock and awe, right? It wasn't
Right.
like us where we were born into the illusion. Well, we were born into Camelot and the Kennedy administration and whatever. They were born and they were born literally during shock and awe, the Iraq war and all that stuff.
Right.
And so that inheritance and that responsibility in the face of the inheritance and the evolution of someone from a sidekick to the hero. And for young people, time is different. As adults, we see past, present, future very clearly. When you're a teenager, they're all the same. Like if my heart is broken today, my heart was always broken and it will always be broken. Right? So for Rocket, every day is all there is. So when she goes out there and fights, she's literally doing it day by day because every day is all there is. And I love Rocket. She's my favorite character from the Milestone comics. She's one of my 10 favorite superheroes, period. And so the opportunity to have her as the spine of this story, to be someone that young people can see themselves in, to be someone that just is heroic despite the odds, is heroic despite being alone. That was really a great opportunity for me. I really connected with her, and that was one of the reasons why I thought it was great to bring in Curtis Metcalf to be her support system, right? Because that's a dynamic you never saw in the old Milestone comics. You didn't even see that in the relaunch. So I was like, oh, let's play with that. Let's take the young girl who's out there every day and every night, and let's take the inventor who's a fugitive from the law, who has no purpose and is living in a hole, and let him come out of his hole and join her mission and thus have a purpose.
Yeah.
And then let's deal with what in writing is called the unity of opposites, right? Which is two different types of people. You bring them together, and through their tension and their relationship, you start telling a story.
Yeah, and it creates an interesting dynamic with Rocket being this amazing like hero who was without one of her parental figures, Icon being her an adopted mentor slash father figure, even though they clashed in that way. But yeah, it's like when you haven't had that, and then you gain a figure kind of in that spot, and then that person is absent for whatever reason. It's like, oftentimes in real life, people do find themselves susceptible to maybe a less than ideal parental figure in that absence, and so I don't know, I liked where that went for Raquel, and it wasn't like she necessarily, it wasn't smooth, it wasn't a smooth partnership, but then yeah, like once hardware is taken off the board, she really is faced with an opportunity where she had to rise to the challenge. And it's like we've talked about this like endlessly with team up books, where or not even team up books, just event books, right, with the big two where there'll be a huge situation and you're like, well, if this team was around, like they could have wrapped this up in like 10 seconds, you know. But
Yeah.
like you definitely like took time plotting out like, no, this is what's up with the Blood Syndicate. This is what's up with Icon and Static. That I found that interesting too, like his thinking, you know, about how he needed to take care of home. And that really did fit with what the events that we've seen in Static's solo series in the Rebirth. Like, you know, he it has hit close to home. Um, as bad as his Static's beef with Hot Streak was in the original series, like Hot Streak like literally started, I think, in the first issue with burning down his home, you know,
Yeah,
so
he
or
burned down
nearly
his
burning
house
down his home.
at the end of the first issue.
Yeah,
Um, and so Static's arc was a very important arc too, because Static is the most known character of all the Milestone characters because of the Static Shock cartoon.
right,
Static as a character has impacted pop culture. You don't have the Spider-Verse. Well, you don't have Miles Morales without Static,
right.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And two generations of people were inspired by Static. Their careers were inspired by Static. Their lives were inspired by Static. You see people cosplaying from different genders, body types, ethnic backgrounds, cosplaying as Static as all these cons. So Static is a very important character. His arc was important in the story. And so what I wanted to think about with him was two things. Number one, it's kind of like Batman Begins in the sense where at the end of Batman Begins, he's still not fully Batman yet, right? Like he's
Mhm.
starting that journey. Like to me, when I look at Static Season 1 that Vita Ayala and Nicholas Draper Ivy did, Static Season 2 that Nicholas Draper Ivy really spearheaded, I felt like that was Act 1 of Static's evolution and Act 2 of Static's evolution. And I felt like Shadow Cabinet had to get him to the end of Act 3, where he would be fully realized in his skin, past the anger, know his capability as a human, know why he's here on this planet. And so I had to really kind of knock him down so he could climb himself back up. Now, in the Icon versus Hardware series, there were two things that happened. One is that Brainiac invaded the world, right? Like one of the Brainiacs from the multiverse, Superman's archenemy. Two is because Hardware messed with time, there was a temporal displacement, and there were like Nazis and dinosaurs in our times. Now the dinosaurs are crazy enough, but let's get to Nazis. Nazis should never be taken casually. Like, that's not a comic book device. Like, my wife and I just saw a documentary called Four Winters, and it was about, I think they were called the Partisans. It was about like a group of 300 Jews that lived in the woods for 4 years and escaped annihilation from Poland,
wow.
right? Out of the Warsaw Ghetto. Like some of them literally jumped off of trains, but they hid in the woods and lived for 4 years, and they ended up having to become soldiers, right? Against like this onslaught military force that decimated their existence. So imagine a battalion of Nazis just like come down your block. You cannot imagine that.
I mean,
And as a
sadly, I don't
young,
think we have to imagine too much these days.
well, listen, well, true, but it could be literal worse.
I feel you. I feel you.
But
Slight, it was
yes,
slight hyperbole.
we're definitely closer than we were a year ago.
Right.
That much is true. And we've seen some
We're
images
closer than
online.
we should ever have
100,
gotten.
100%. 100%, right?
This is where I
100%.
go back to
So,
like, thank God for those young people who have been fighting hard for a decade.
exact. Okay, so now you're Static, young black man. Nazis are now marching through your block. You save your family, you save the people on the block in a neighborhood. I think his natural reaction is not, well, I'm just going to go out there into the world and play superhero. I think his natural reaction is, I'm going to stay here and protect my family.
Yeah.
I'm going to protect my family and I'm going to protect my neighborhood. The world, let other people take care of that. The cops, the firemen, whatever. Me, I'm protecting this. because I can't lose this, because if I lose this, then all rules go out the window. There
Mhm.
are no guardrails on me anymore. And
Right.
that's the horrifying thing. The horrifying thing when you have power and you're good is that you know that if you go bad, right? Static knows if
Mhm.
he goes bad, it's off. And so that was the thing, right? He was coming from a place of fear. Um, and so he stayed there. And so the arc that he had to go through, well, what would make him go back out into the world? What would make him wear the blue and yellow costume again? Because, he reverted to a white and black costume. And it was a talk with his mother. It was his mother who gave him the permission to go back out in the world. And, we've all been young,
Well, I
and
would say one part gave him permission, one part slapped him upside the head and said, "What are you doing?"
100. Well, listen, um, Black
I
Mother
mean,
is take no
I
junk.
loved that scene, Joe. Like I said, I
Thank
say
you.
this with all love. It's one part gave him permission, and it's at least one part. What the fuck are you doing, Virgil?
Right, because she's basically like, these things that you're seeing happening on TV, whatever, the blood
Right.
syndicate getting captured, being called terrorists, the military insertion authorized by government officials, martial law, takeover of black neighborhoods, right? Which then echoes Tulsa, which then echoes Rosewood, and things like that. It's like she's telling him, this is only going to get worse. This is only gonna get higher. And it's like, you survived something that killed a lot of people, which means that why you're here is more than us. And one day we're gonna be gone, and you're not gonna be able to prevent that. And so she was like, what do you want from the world? And he hesitated, and she told him to speak his truth, and he said, I want a just world. And she was like, okay, you're gonna have to go out there and fight for it. You can't create the just world staying at home and protecting us. And there were a number of things behind that. Number one, talking about the black family, and the true spine and soul of the black family is the black mother. The fact that in the Static Shock cartoon, his mother is dead before he becomes Static. So he never got to have a conversation like that in the cartoon. So I felt he had to have it with her here. Um, and also, like I said, I wanted to really make him fully actualize Static. So, from a writing standpoint, she introduced the notion in his head that when he comes back, he says the line, "My name is Static, and I will put a shock to your system." Like, I wanted to pull that from the cartoon and put it in the comics. And that came from when she talks to him and she says, "The world is burning. People are losing hope. Shock them, son. Surprise them, right? There is hope. This world will not burn. Go out
This
there and surprise them, you know?"
this made me think of two specific things that I want to say. The first is that I said earlier that like Static felt the same to me, and as in both universes, and I meant that as a compliment. And you're right that he doesn't. He's not as jokey as he was in the original Milestone continuity. He's a
Yeah.
very different character in that sense. But what I liked about him, and what I think is really strong, is that he's very much he's the street level hero. He is the person who's about his
Yeah.
neighborhood, his family, his friends, his community, and that has remained really strong. And in the new Milestone universe, that's defining his character in a really cool way, where he is deliberately stepping, I wouldn't say stepping back, but he's deliberately focusing on what's around him right now, and then
Hmm.
making sure that that's protected first. And then it takes Rocket sort of pushing him out or pulling him out with her, and that's such a big step for him and for her as well, frankly. I mean, but it's also
Yep.
like that specific line about what he wanted it was a callback to one of my absolute favorite bits in the comic, which is that one issue where, and you also call back to it elsewhere, where it's like you point out that the Big Bang, the Q juice is like weird plasma that doesn't understand Planck's constant. So like every time you breathe it, you're asking this universe a question. And a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
you're just sort of it's like you're asking it, what do you expect from the universe? And when what I think Icon asks him in that scene in the original continuity is,
That's
what do
right.
you expect from the universe? He says, justice. Yeah, and that's I love that. That was such a great. I'm like, oh my God, I remember that issue. Oh,
That
that made me
yep.
feel so good. That yeah, no,
Yeah.
so I love that's remained the core for him, that it's like justice is a really tangible local thing. It's a thing for him that is about the people he knows, the family, the community he has, and it's Raquel getting him to
Yep.
look
Yeah.
outside and realize there's more to it, and the world, you have to push back against it before it rises any higher. No, that was yeah. I love that element of it. Thanks
Yeah,
you guys for
no,
bringing up
thank
again.
you. And I'm glad you caught that callback to Icon 20 and that conversation with him in Hardware, because that's totally what it was. I wanted to do those echoes, right? I wanted to do those because these thematic echoes will be with the heroes no matter what incarnation they are. And so I wanted that, and I wanted the old fans to get that get the feels. I wanted it to mean something for the people reading it now. But in terms of but this is also what happened, Ted, and to your point, when I brought him back, I brought back the jokes, right? Because I'm basically like, Virgil's a naturally funny kid, but he's been suppressing it because he's just been so angry and depressed. So it's been buried. But now that he's back and he is fully himself, they just come flying out, right? So when he shows up and he's like, who's the human-sized kaiju? And Rocket's
Yeah.
like Edward Alba, and dude's like, dude, you're a billionaire. Superpowers are my racket. Stay in your lane, right? That's real.
Yes.
It's like, God damn it, you're a billionaire. You can't have everything. Can't the poor can't the middle-aged black kid have the superpowers and you just have all the damn money and the damn
Well,
power? You know what I mean? But
well,
again, there's no end for narcissism, right?
and making him like essentially Dr. Manhattan. I mean, was that like
Mm. And right? Because I don't know if you know this, but but I'm sure you've intuited this. Issue 3 was Watchmen. It was structured like Watchmen, the nine panel grid or 6 panel, 7 panels. Like visually, it is iconically Watchmen and Dave Gibbons layouts, and it was quite inspired. And I don't mean necessarily story, but just like the structure of it and the revelation. It was inspired by Watchmen #4, which was the origin of Doctor Manhattan.
Oh my God, I'm just realized. Yeah, wow. Look,
100.
I'm
Yeah,
looking
it's
at
it's totally structured like Watchmen 4. Not necessarily page for page, but all the panel configurations. So if you look at Watch Shadow Cabinet
so
3,
what you really
it
mean
is
is it's
kind of like
inspired
the most packed.
it's inspired by Jaime Hernandez because I mean that's
Hey, listen, that's
that's what
true.
inspired Gibbons.
Right. Yeah, you're talking about the Hernandez brothers in Love and Rockets. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so
mean that's 100 rooms, man.
yeah.
That's another one
Yep.
of our book clubs, Joe.
Oh wow,
I
wow.
talk as much about Love and Rockets as I do about Milestone. We do
That's
that
a
one
real
weekly.
That's a really great one.
It
I would
is.
have to do some brushing up to hang in that room, but that's a
We,
good
we
room.
we've been going issue by issue through Love and Rockets for God,
That's pretty
almost
wild.
3 years now.
That's pretty wild.
We're through the first
Um,
50. We're in what I call the in-between years. We're reading Luba and Penny Century, and we'll get into Love and Rockets Volume 2
wow.
probably sometime over the summer.
Wow. But yeah, so yeah, so that was Static's journey, to Marcus's question, and I felt so good. I felt good as a writer and as someone who loves them, um, to put Rocket and Static through the journey so that at the end of the journey, they're fully realized and they're together and they're the future, right? When a series starts for Rocket, it starts at the dead of night, and when it ends on a bright day, right? Um, so I felt really good about that, and people really responded to it in the way that was like, yeah, those people who stayed, who stayed with it. Because, one of the things that concerns me about comics these days is, for any given issue of a comic, or at least I would say big two comics, or maybe top six direct market publishers, I don't think we know what percentage of the consumership are readers and what
Right.
percentage of the consumership are collectors, like who are just buying the covers. And
Your trade paperback sales, I think, tell you that better than your
well,
single issue.
well, to your point, yeah, because the Shadow Cabinet
Speaking of
trade
which, really
paperback,
quick before I
yeah,
forget, trade paperback will be in stores August 19th, in bookstores August 20th, in comic shops. It's available for pre-order right now, and the final order cutoff is June 9th. Just wanted to
all
get that
right.
out there really quick since we
Listen,
hadn't yet.
thank you. It's very important. So listeners have up
Pre-order,
until June
pre-order your
9th to
copy of
pre-order it
Shadow
at your
Cabinet.
comic book shop,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you can also pre-order it through like barnesandnoble.com, various websites you can pre-order
Bookshop.org.
the book.
Support your
Bookshop.org.
local bookstores.
Support local bookstores, 100%. Support independent bookstores, 100%.
Right.
Support comic book specialty stores,
If
100%.
if you're in Brooklyn, Joe's a big fan of Bulletproof and Anyone.
Yes,
I am
Bulletproof
too.
Comics and Anyone Comics are my two local shops. I live almost equidistant between the both of them on the train line, and both owners are friends of mine. Um, so yeah, for me as a writer, I really like connecting with the readers. I'm happy for everyone to buy Shadow Cabinet, but as a writer, I'm really connecting on another level with the readers because I'm a reader too. I mean, that's my addiction is books
I
and
mean,
reading.
I can see all the comics behind him.
Yeah,
Not all of
dude.
the comics geeks that we talk, or not all of the comics people we talk to have the number of book comics on their shelves behind them that you always do.
Oh, yeah,
Lots
dude.
of original art we'll see, lots of,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I have those too, but they're not up and framed yet. They're like
I
in
understand.
boxes and
I
stuff. I
understand.
need an influx of some cash to get to that. But no, I'm about the books and
You know
I
what I
need
heard? A friend of
go.
mine just told me is a
Yeah,
way to get your frames cheap.
go.
Go to Goodwill, and they always have like art and
Wow.
buy the
That
stuff just for the frames.
listen,
Take
that
whatever's in it out so that you can have the frame.
that's a pretty brilliant technique, I gotta say. That's brilliant because that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, for me and my job as a writer and also as an editor for clients and creators and companies and as a consultant, I need books within arm's reach so I can literally provide examples. I was talking with a client the other day, and I was just able to reach over and pull out Wonder Woman Historia by Kelly Sue DeConnick, Phil Jimenez,
Oh,
Gene Ha, and Nicholas Scott. And then I was also able to pull out, one of these little biddies here, like Black Sad. Well, that's Bizarre Adventures.
we
Black
just talked
Sad,
about Black Sad on the our Pulp Blotter book club.
yeah, by Juan Diaz Canales
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
Juanjo Guarnido. I mean, understand,
Oh my
Black
God, Black Sad
Sad,
is so good.
Black Sad is consummate
Yeah.
comics.
Yeah.
Consummate comics,
Yeah.
man. Like, if you haven't read it, you must start reading those graphic novels immediately. Thank you to Dark Horse for translating them. Veteran legendary
Reprinting
editor
them.
Diana
Yeah.
Schultz,
Yeah.
has spearheaded those translations.
Yep.
Thank you, God, for those because Black Sad is just,
Oh my God.
Black Sad's like the top of the mountain that I'm never gonna reach. So I don't even know if I'm gonna, I don't even know if I'm gonna try to reach that mountain. Maybe only Black Sad should
Black
be up
Sad
there.
it's in its own because it's brilliant noir and
Yeah.
brilliant anamorphism and
Yep.
brilliant social commentary
Yep. Yep.
and brilliant acting and brilliant writing and like
It's consummate on every level.
yeah, every
It's
single level.
consummate on every level,
Right.
like Andor, like Sinners, like
Right.
Watchmen. Like
Yeah.
it's one of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
pieces of storytelling that every layer you can think of, it is operating at the top
Well,
of its
and
game.
it's infinitely rereadable because even once you know
100%.
how things turn out, you see extra layers every time through.
100%. 100%.
You
And listen,
know.
as a writer, I think that's one of our hopes. Like
Right.
I believe that Shadow Cabinet has a reread in it. I
I've
also
read it
hope that
twice now. I liked it better the second time.
that's awesome. I also hope, listen, when I talk about what were some of my inspirations in comics, it's DC's The Golden Age by James Robinson and Paul Martin Smith, and it's Kingdom Come by Mark Waid and Alex Ross. It's I'm trying to think, like those were two core ones that I really thought about. And so, when it gets collected, I feel like, I hope that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, people could read it. And if you're a Milestone fan, it means something to you. And if you discover it for the first time, you're like, you know what, that was a cool romp. Like that was a cool romp. There were characters to care about. There was a big story. There were these human stories traveling within the big story. Because if I think like who are the core characters of the drama we'll call the Shadow Cabinet? It's Rocket, it's Raquel Irvin, it's Virgil Hawkins Static, it's very much Angela Alva, right? I feel like those are your three. That's your triangle right there. And then you have second layer around that, third layer around that. And in that second layer would be like Curtis Metcalf Hardware. But, Rocket, Static, and Angela, they're the triangle at the center of this story. And I feel like, all of us, myself, Darryl Banks, Adagoon Hilhan, Chris Sotomayor, one of the best colors in comics, the glue, and World Studios with the lettering, Dennis Cowan, who not only did the A covers, but was kind enough to do the Alva flashback history, because who else should do that? Nicholas Draper Ivy, who visually and thematically redefined Static for the 21st century, doing the B covers. We even got a C cover from Sean Gordon Murphy from Batman White Knight for the first two. So I feel like everyone just brought their A game to it. And, we made something pretty damn good.
Like it. I
Yeah.
like it. So
I strongly agree.
Thank you.
I know
Thank
we're
you.
running up on time with Joe. I do have one question that you may or may not be able to answer.
Okay, let's
Um,
take a whack at it.
well, the book ends on a hell of a cliffhanger. Do
Mm.
we
Yeah.
know do we know when we get more Milestone? Because
Yeah, that's a
I
great
know it hasn't been
question.
announced yet, and one of our frustrations is that like uh, other than those first three series, it hasn't been multiple Milestone things at a time, or even
Right.
always there is a Milestone thing every month. So
Yeah,
like,
pretty much every time we speak, I know nobody hears me, but I'm trying to like will DC to get a monthly Milestone content coming.
Well, first of all, that's awesome. And let me correct you. It's not that no one hears you. I believe that very much like the Unimind that is composed of all the Eternals, I feel like there's a Milestone Unimind in the world, and it's broadcasting, and DC and people are receiving these signals.
Okay,
So
okay.
we hope.
the thing, listen, here's the thing about Milestone.
Okay.
Milestone never dies. Just when you
Are
think it's
the
dead, it comes
that
back. You think
that's
it's
true.
dead, it comes back. Milestone never dies.
Yeah.
So
We still need to manage to get like the telepathic link to the people who write the checks at Discovery.
well,
Mm.
Because they don't
listen.
seem to be
Well,
getting
well, you know what? One miracle at a time.
Okay, fair.
And if we're going to be very, business-like and straightforward about Warner Brothers Discovery, Warner Brothers Discovery is a company in constant flux,
Yeah.
right? You're talking about, I think the two mega producers who brought Warner Brothers Discovery Minecraft and Sinners, right?
Right.
Two back-to-back historic successes in two different ways. And the popular word in La La Land is their jobs are on the chopping block, right? So if that is so, then who knows what the heck is going on? And the Milestone Universe is the least of their concerns. Like, you need to have stable ground. You need
Fair,
to know.
fair.
You need to know.
You gotta
This
go
is
and
my
be the
team.
you gotta go and be the reasonable voice, man. We don't want
Me,
reasonable
listen,
voices.
God, let
Yeah.
me tell you something. Let's keep it real. I think
We also
I've
don't
been
want to get you in any
Yeah.
professional
Yeah.
trouble.
No, listen, I'm not getting in any trouble
Okay.
because what
Okay.
I'm stating, you could read on Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and Deadline.
Right.
Right.
Warner Brothers Discovery is a company in constant flux, right?
Yep.
And if you want to feel some sympathy for somebody, you better save some for James Gunn.
Yeah.
Because until Superman comes out and it's a success, that dude's got a lot on his shoulders.
Yeah.
The stockholders, they're looking at his ass. So make sure you give him some sympathy. I mean that sincerely, James.
Yeah.
I hope you win. Right now. So the thing is that, you talked about be the reasonable voice, and people going through their own awakenings and their own arcs. I think I've been deluding myself into thinking for years that I'm a reasonable voice. And I've been trying to fit into the boxes of these organizations. And then I had a realization that I was like, no, I'm not a reasonable voice. I'm not meant to be in anyone else's box. So this point of my life, this is my actualization, being an independent operator, being a Ronin, being a writer and an editor and a guide and a consultant for the next generation of creators and people that want to manifest their ideas, and using my company Illuminous to kind of open the doors to help people, like being of service. That's what I was meant to be, and I can't fully be of service in a box. So I am not the reasonable voice. I am the unreasonable voice of our time, of comics. I am one of the unreasonable voices, and I'm proud of it. So that's
Okay.
it. So
So
I
you
am
can
not
find our
gonna,
rich
I am not
person
gonna
to buy
I'm not gonna
Milestone.
listen.
Yeah.
You know what?
But you know what? The
I will
beautiful.
put listen, I'll do it if it has to be
I figured
done.
you would.
I'll do it,
Yeah.
but I am not going to Burbank and talking to anybody at Warner Brothers Discovery about their business. It's like, I'm just gonna read about it in the rags. I want Superman to be great, and then when Superman is great, give me more Blue Beetle. Let Blue Beetle lead the way to Static and expanding the Milestone Universe. Give me some authority and all that stuff. I'm just gonna buy the tickets,
Yeah.
right?
Look, I'm just hopeful that I mean, I think you mentioned Sinners. I'm hoping that this is an inflection point because I was so wildly inspired, by the experience of that film, and I know so many other Black people in general and Black creators have been, and I just feel like that same spirit of, like, essentially going for ours will just echo, and
100%.
so yeah.
This is an exciting time. You've got Tom Cruise, Kevin Bacon, and his wife Kira Sedgwick. You've got Pedro Pascal. You've got these visible people in Hollywood, and they're all saying, go see Sinners.
Yeah.
You've got Rob Liefeld, who has things to say about the entire industry of comics and entertainment. On one of my Facebook posts says, Sinner is a great movie, and that should be the story.
Mhm.
That's the Sinners is a great movie, and that should be the story of the headlines of the media. It's like, hey, awesome is awesome, and that is it. And
Right.
the big lie that cultural stories are not universal is
Exactly.
ridiculous.
Look,
It
it's
is
been disproven
ridiculous.
over and over.
Over
Yeah,
and over
absolutely.
again.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, the original Milestone was for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And this Milestone is for everybody. And Shadow Cabinet is meant to be for everybody. So now going back to the front, Milestone never dies. Thus, Milestone will return. How Milestone will return remains to be seen. The cliffhanger, as you call it, which was the end of Shadow Cabinet, the last page. In my way, I didn't see it as a cliffhanger. I saw it as a closing of a chapter.
Yeah.
For those of us who've watched The Wire, and you remember the last 8 minutes of the final episode of the fifth season.
It's one of the best
and
endings. Yeah,
listen, and these characters go on their paths, and you think to yourself, I want to see what happens to Michael tomorrow. I want to see what happens to McNulty tomorrow. I want to see, what's going to happen to Kennard or Marlowe tomorrow. That's how I wanted you to feel with the last 5 pages of Shadow Cabinet 4.
Definitely.
I want to see what happens with Raquel and Virgil tomorrow. What happens with the Blood Syndicate tomorrow? What happens with the trial of the Big Bang and Curtis Metcalf and Augustus Freeman, his lawyer, tomorrow? That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to do the Wire final episode, and I think we did that. So
that's good. Unlike the Wire final
episode. And I think you just answered my question. How much of that was you, and how much of that was we have these plans, we need you to set them up? And it sounds like it was you saying, hey, here's an idea.
I'm giving you the roads.
Right.
I'm giving you the roads.
I'm giving you multiple roads.
Bingo. Anyone could pick up any one of those and be like,
right,
there's your new Blood Syndicate series. There's your new Rocket and Static series. I put down the roads. Marcus, what were you saying?
So much. I mean, I feel like, wait, what was I about to say? I have a lot of thoughts. I mean, just in the sense that I love the Wire final episode comparison. With that was so perfect. I don't even want to see, because it's like, it was so poetic. Everybody's ending, like Marlowe specifically, like, and yeah, all the characters. So like, with yours, even though it is that, I very much do want to see where they go. I'm hopeful that, like what you were speaking about like, that kind of that merging of the two visions of the characters, like specifically in Static's case, that they do really integrate some more of that, because it makes sense with where you left him. You had Rocket come in and really try to compel him to help on this larger scale. And, he had his understandable perspective about staying local and sticking to family. And then, like, he rose to the challenge, like she did. And, with his mother, obviously, like, encouraging him. And to me, it would make sense, especially with your description of this kind of being like the closing of a third act of his origin. It really would make sense for whoever picks him up from here to like let a little bit of that light in as well. Not that he didn't have it in the initial 2 seasons, but I just, it was high stakes, and it almost felt like there wasn't room for the kind of underdoggy Static, like, and I like that this Static is like, it's not that old Static wasn't cool, but like, he was an outcast a bit, and he was the underdog, and like literally he was like the same age as like high school Marcus. So I was like, oh yeah, this is like me, like, and so I don't know. I don't necessarily need him to be an outcast or anything, but I like the bad joking Static too. I feel like we could let a little bit of that in. So I don't know.
I brought him back. We brought him back, and one of my favorite pages of the whole series, and probably now forever in comics, was when Daryl Banks and Chris Sotomayor do the splash page of him coming back and him pointing. He's literally riding his lightning. He's not riding any metal anymore. Like, he's riding his lightning.
That's really
like,
cool. Yeah,
that's like, that's the image, or that's one of the definitive images. And, I do feel like their futures are intertwined, and that's why, he says to her, hey, like, I'm not joking. Like, I will never leave you out there alone again. And then,
powerful.
She's like, are you trying to put a shock to my system, Flyboy? Because, he's kind of flirting with her and whatnot.
But he said no, right? Like, and that was...
he was like that. He was like, nah.
Yeah, but that for me was... But
there's nah and there's nah, right?
Absolutely.
There's nah, like, no, of course not.
Right.
Right? But there's nah, like, no, I'm lying because I really dig you, but this
Okay.
is not the
You
time.
weren't supposed to notice. That's what he's trying to say.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, that's interesting. But all right, this is my reading. You can tell.
Yes, I am
I
totally
know
trying
you
to put
wrote
the
it and
shock to
all.
you, but you weren't supposed to notice yet.
Right.
It's
Well, no,
all
you
right,
know what's interesting is like I know you wrote it and all, but my interpretation was sure. My interpretation definitely allowed for that, but the way I also read it was because I've had times in life, obviously I've been happily married for a long time, but I remember, being a young man, and it's like you have those people in your life where yeah, you're like flirting, whatever, but then, I've had situations where it didn't end up, being
yeah.
something romantic, but then, you found like a friendship that was like truly valuable. And a lot of dudes uh you got the Steve Harveys of the world that don't even believe women and men can be friends. And so I read what he was saying as like I'd be cool if I was in that situation, but I'm here for you, period. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? Which
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
something
Also
profound
true.
about that.
That's
Yeah.
also very much true because the thing is, it's like, when you're a teenager, you don't platonic friendships is not what's immediately in your
Right.
vocabulary. They happen by accident.
Right. Right.
And when they happen, you're like, oh, wow, this is really special. But that was not your plan. Your plan was not to make this person that you could kind of be attracted to your best friend. But life just takes you and you're like, wow, I got a best friend and this is really
And
amazing. And
or
I would
they're
do
your
anything
best
for this
friend, and
person.
you're like, but you're also a girl, and you're my
Right.
best friend. So I
Well,
mean,
it's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, well, what's interesting too about Virgil is Virgil has a lot of women that are close to him in his life. He's got
Mhm.
Frida, he's got
Daisy.
Daisy, he's got Raquel. Some guys, and Virgil is just so good.
Mhm.
Even when he's kind of angry or whatever, he attracts them, and I mean, in the literal sense of attraction, like he has a warmth and he attracts these young women to him. And so, that's part of it too, is that, Virgil is a really likable kid
Right.
on his way to
Yeah.
becoming a really good man.
Yeah. And
Right.
I have to say, like, when Milestone returned, obviously, I thought it was, prescient that the Big Bang like happened around a protest of like
But jeez.
police brutality in a Black Lives Matter protest,
Yeah.
and like I mean, obviously we all felt so much, Black people throughout, like, period, right? Because 2020 was a moment and everything,
Yeah.
and I've spoken on the show, I'm sure, about the fact that well, I found power and inspiration in the fact that like more people were activated that time than in previous killings of black
Yes.
innocent Black people. I was
Yes.
also like, all right, let's see what everybody's endurance is, but I say all that to say that I know specifically for me, it was like there was a lot weighing, just seeing, just sheerly, um, just what happened to George Floyd, period, the way it echoed so many things. David and I were like wrapping up the Black Panther Party book, like,
Yeah.
when everything popped off. So like, if you think about that, like creating a book about the party, which its origins like literally grew out of the same acts of like police killing of unarmed Black men, and here
Yes.
we are like decades and decades later. So I
Yes.
say all that to say it was like there was something about like when Virgil came back, and he all the things the about him that are so likable, and one of the changes that I thought was really dope, which maybe didn't allow for him to be jokey underdog Virgil, is he kind of did rise to the occasion, and he was like and his friend group was kind of included in his hero adventures
Yes.
in a way that they hadn't been before, and he was like a leader, like, and then even when he the rescues that happened when he rescued other metahumans, I don't know, it was just kind of cool. And like, so I just thought about that because when you were talking about like that attraction, just these women in his life, but like there's something to be said about like Black people, Black men, Black women, Black everybody's like being so misunderstood, you know, in this country for so long, and like having so many instances of seeing like ourselves or our images torn down, that when you just get some like really powerful image of this young black man, like, you know, being so respected, and um yeah, and just like being this force, it was moving. You know, I found it moving at the time, especially with like what was going on, you know, and what had been going on.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's part of the reason why Static endures,
Right.
right? He endures as a character because he had to climb the mountain of teenage insecurity and doubt and understanding that being cool is not trying to fit in with other people, but being cool is being who you are and just being
Mhm.
good and wanting to help people. That's what cool is, right? And once he knows that he's cool, then you can't stop him. He's not
Yeah.
weighed down by anything. And so Static as a character, I think that's why he connects with so many people because he symbolized the the upward climb to knowing who you are,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
something that some people I mean, some people pass from this earth and they never find out who they are, right?
Yeah.
And insofar as the importance of Static as a black hero, you know, and the importance of, you know, even Miles Morales as an Afro-Latino hero. Um, you know, I think you said black people are misunderstood. I would challenge that. I think black people are understood quite well, and I think that the people are afraid of that. I think they're afraid of the power of black people. They're afraid of the people that they keep trying to break and that just keep getting back up. They're afraid of the people that they kill their symbols and the people get reactivated. They're afraid of the intellect and the vitality and the culture. And what they're really afraid of, and this again goes to heroism and Static. Static coming out of a Black Lives Matter protest and gassed by cops, and Static trying to save children who have powers from the government. They're afraid of the end of magnanimity, right? Magnanimity is the capacity to not wish harm on those who
Mm,
inflict and wish continuous harm on you. We are amazingly magnanimous as a
absolutely.
part of as a part of civilization on
Humanity.
Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if that should ever end,
No,
if
no,
the
that is a
magnanimity
central fear.
should ever
Yeah.
end,
Yeah. That's a
it's
central fear of
like
white supremacy.
you have no idea what's coming. And my wife and I actually spoke about this yesterday in regards to like the Jewish people and surviving the Holocaust. It's like the Nazis had no idea what they had unleashed because they saw these people and they were like, "Oh, we can just we can just disgrace you and kill you and be done with you." And it's like, "No, you don't understand. At the core of human beings is this will to survive and it's an extraordinary primal thing." And so Static is magnanimity.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is magnanimity. Superman is magnanimity, right?
Hmm.
I think that's what's at the core of the superheroic ideal
Right.
is the absence of the eye for an eye credo,
Right.
right? It's the magnanimity. Um,
Yeah.
so that's the thing. I would argue that we're quite understood.
I suppose the only way and you know, the point definitely taken. The where what I would say though is I would say maybe our the depth of our humanity is misunderstood, you know, and well,
Fair.
and absolutely I would definitely say that there have been those who maybe did understand, to your point, right, and
Right.
have deliberately perpetrated the lie, you know, about our humanity. But the problem is like that shit is taking root too, you know, in a way where it's like it's hard to tell, like, who understands that it's a lie and who doesn't. And at the end of the day, when it comes to the effect on us, I get it kind of doesn't even matter, like, because we've built up this awful structure. But you're absolutely right that fear of
The end of magnanimity. But
yeah.
also, you look at America, and then we should probably wrap this up before it goes a different direction. And I think I've got some housework to do.
Oof, yeah.
But if we talk about humanity, and we talk about America, and we talk about what the ideal of America is that everyone was welcome here to build and to create community and to uplift everyone, right? And the fact that we have become a nation that is now demonizing so many communities with ruthless immediacy. I don't care how many times you try to censor history. I don't care what you take out of museums. I don't care what you take off of government websites. I don't care how you try to diminish the media, or more accurately, diminish the journalists, because the journalists are the truth tellers. The fact of the matter is, America as an ideal at the core of it is supposed to be the symbolism of community and open arms for the uplifting of the human race. And it is not that right now. Okay. And so we're in for the fight of our lives, but that has to be fixed. And in our small corner of the world, we're doing it through comic books. I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm not going to be a fireman. I'm not going to be a billionaire magnate. But God damn it, I'm going to be a storyteller.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. Storytellers are the ones that are inspiring the people who change the world. It is the stories. And so I know that what we're doing is noble.
No, most
I
definitely.
just want to ask a quick question, because with the doctor and the firefighter, you're choosing not to, but would you turn down the opportunity to be a billionaire magnate? Because I think you'd make a good one.
Oh, well, okay. So first, you're very kind.
There's no such thing as a good billionaire.
Well, I was going to say, let me say this. Let me say this. If I were to get $1 billion, I would do the Mackenzie Scott thing, and I would immediately put together a group of individuals and figure out how to distribute the $1 billion. Because me as an individual holding $1 billion, while like 3 blocks that way are like people in the train stations, like living homeless, that's not proper. So if I were to achieve $1 billion status, I'm putting together a council of people who are much wiser than me, and I'm like, okay, what do we do with this money? You just leave me this much.
Just so long as you also buy Milestone and continue doing your thing.
That's gonna happen, dude. Come on.
Right.
Yeah, but like literally,
Milestones.
you could with $1 billion, you could not only do that, but you could create endless milestones that we haven't even dreamed of yet.
That's my point.
Well, listen, I feel like, Marcus, that's what you and I are hopefully doing, and Tad and Ted through the podcast. I feel like what we're doing.
Ted actually is a writer too.
Yeah.
Look at that, Ted. You're one of us.
Ted did a fantastic
and
book
the librarian, which is one of the heroes.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Ted, like Marcus, started as a guest on the podcast because he wrote a fantastic book called Side Effects.
Oh my God.
So
modest. So modest. He doesn't mention this at all.
I'm not. I'm just. You're the guest, man. I'm not talking about myself.
You're very kind. You're very kind. So again, I hope that what we're doing is we're planting seeds and we're activating people. Yeah. I feel like to some degree I've done that through my career. I feel like you're doing that with the books that you're working on, and this is public knowledge. You and I are working on the Harriet Tubman story, and when you talk about people helping other people, one of the truths of revolutions, whether it was the Underground Railroad, whether it was with the partisans, the group of Jews who fought against Nazis in World War II, the community of allies always or usually involves people from outside your immediate group, right? So
Yeah.
So there is a core humanity here in this world that supersedes race, gender, I don't know, religion. There's a core humanity. Um, that's what needs to be activated en masse is our core humanity. People are fighting it.
Right.
They got it in them, but they're fighting it because if you tap into that, your responsibility is greater.
Right.
But if you avoid it, it's you think it's easier, but spiritually it's harder, right? So there are people who are just fighting core humanity, but to your point, Tad, about the world, maybe this is what we have to go through. Maybe
is.
we got to go through the ultimate bad shit
I mean,
And
it
you know
seems
what?
like
I've
every
said
8
many.
years or
rise
so.
to rise to rise to a real golden age.
Right.
We have to face existential eradication of the best values that our society has to offer in order for people to decide, damn, I've never fought before, but I'll fight for that.
Right.
Right. I mean, think about it. It's like I've said this many times, but this country has never truly reckoned with its crimes. You know, whether it's
Oh, and no, I mean, come on.
indigenous people, black people.
Yeah.
No, so
But that doesn't.
my point is like, yes, this opportunity, and you know, it's interesting because it's like an awful child who has the power to do worldwide damage, and is maybe being given chances over and over again to be accountable, and you know, and it's refused at every turn. So, like to your point about this, like this opportunity of you know, people to embrace that level of humanity that, quite frankly, you know, many have embraced throughout American history, but not enough, you know, and
Right.
like
100%.
maybe we
Yeah.
have to have literal comic book villains, you know, creating false governmental offices and literally being like just goofy Lex Luthors before
Well,
we actually, you know, do what needs to be done.
I'm glad you mentioned that because if I'm going to end my time here tonight on this, on a message, it's this. We diminish the comic book villains when we compare these narcissistic individuals to them. We
Mhm.
diminish Lex Luthor when we
Mm.
compare anybody that's in the big conversation of our times, Lex Luthor. Like
Lex is way cooler.
That's why I said
the
a
word
goofy Lex
Lex,
Luthor.
exactly.
I said
That's true.
a
Right.
goofy Lex.
It is the
Right,
goofier versions
right,
of
right,
Yeah.
these
It's
true
Bizarro Lex
villains.
Luthor.
right,
Yes,
right, right.
yes. So it's
I mean,
true.
that's
And
actually, you know, I've seen many a writer say in various forums, including on this show once or twice, that like they look at the world now and they're like, 10 years ago, if I pitched this, I
right,
would have been
right.
told that it was
Yeah,
too
too on the
unrealistic.
nose. Yeah.
right.
Too
Yeah.
unrealistic.
Oh, too
No,
Now,
no,
unrealistic. Yeah.
right. It
nobody will
wouldn't have
believe
happened.
that. You
Mm.
can't, that's not even good sci-fi. Nobody will believe that that can happen.
Well, look, let's be clear. You could believe that there were a lot of things in development and entertainment that got thrown in the trash
Right.
because of the last 200
Hmm.
days. It was
Yeah.
just
Hmm.
like, oh, like this is obsolete or this
Right.
is now documentary
Right.
level.
Right.
I don't understand how Black Mirror is back, honestly, because Black Mirror is like, but I'm living in Black Mirror. I don't need to
Right.
watch it on Netflix. I'm
Well, see,
living
they
in
should
Black
make it white
Mirror.
mirror
Oh,
or
ooh,
clear
Tad,
mirror or
you
something. No,
don't
no,
even know
I
what you're
caught
saying.
myself there. I
I
caught
don't
myself
know
there.
if you understand the depth of what you said,
I do.
but
I do
yeah,
actually
dude,
really
right,
understand.
right. It's like that would be something. Go in the other direction, right? But yeah, because it's kind of like I think
I
Tad and
mean, AWA
I
is actually doing that right now. They're not doing utopias. They're doing their protopia
yeah, yes they are.
one
Yes they are.
shots,
Yes they
you
are.
know, where they're
But
trying to imagine what could a realistic but positive near future outcome be.
listen, maybe
You know,
we
Mark
need more of
Russell had
those
the first
visions.
one, and you know, he's the
Well,
king of the dystopia, and
exactly. He's the
turns
king
out
of
he's pretty good at
dystopias.
protopia too.
Listen, well, I think to make that is like, I want this world, but we've got to travel through this one, right?
Right.
And it's
Right.
like, listen, we're about to enter the end game of Greg Rucka and Michael Lark's Lazarus.
Speaking of which, you're about
In
to start
real
hitting that
time.
on a weekly basis. So
Oh,
you know,
really?
yeah. You might.
I love that
wanna
series.
join us at some
I
point.
didn't get to finish it. So
Dude,
you're actually going to be reading it?
You need to
Yeah,
catch
we're
up
gonna
on
be-
Lazarus now because
No, I
there's
read. Yeah. It's
there's
It's
ongoing.
ending soon.
there's a big
Yeah.
twist. Yeah,
Okay.
they're about to start
Okay.
again, and when they start it, it's the last run. Like it will be
Right.
monthly until the end.
Yeah. I'm going
And
to catch
Right.
up. I'm going to catch up.
There is a twist in the
Okay.
latest Lazarus issues where it's like
Yeah.
it reframes everything.
Oh,
Everything.
man.
And it
Okay.
reframes everything. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
like so
at least to begin with, we're going to take it weekly on our weekly or issue by issue weekly as part of our regular weekly episode.
that's pretty wild,
Um,
dude.
But
That's pretty
I
wild.
think we're already planning like trying to get together smaller groups to do like each arc. So I'll keep you in mind because I know that we've talked about that before.
You can keep me in mind if you could find me in a sliver between
That's
any
always
two
the
busy
challenge.
points. You could try. So anyway,
Always the
so
challenge.
I gotta go. But this has been great.
yeah.
Always good talking with y'all.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Have,
this
was
have a
fantastic.
great
Thank you
one,
so much.
Joe. Marcus and Ted, do we want to keep going or do we want to say goodbye with Joe?
Oh no, I'm
I
about
think
to
this is a
turn into
perfect
pumpkin.
point.
Oh,
I think
wow.
it is too. So we'll say for the brothers Anderson, no relation, for Joe Illidge, this has been the Milestone Book Club on 22 Panels, and we will see you after the next page.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22 Panels Podcast.